I'm not joking. I got one friend.
Hello.
We'll pause it for a minute. And we'll come back and pause it.
Hello, hello, and welcome to Kerbal Space Program. This is Brendan the Kerbal Man, and hopefully we'll get a few people up and joining us in a few moments so that we can start with our tutorial. Now let's pull up the game, and we can go from here. So, we'll recover Jeb off the island. So right now what I have loaded is a, just a normal... Oh, I didn't know you could move the camera there. We just have a normal, non-career sandbox mode loaded, so we can start playing with some stuff and kind of looking at how things work in the game and how to make the game give you as much as possible and how to get the most out of it. So if you've not played before, or you're just starting off, Kerbal Space Program is a flight simulator in which we build rockets and send them to space. So hopefully once we get some people watching, I can get some requests for plans and ideas, and then we'll be able to go from there. And that is my fault. Let me switch that to public. Alright, we should be public now. People can watch. Okay, so we can get started. Just wait a few minutes. Some people should show up eventually, and we'll go from there. Hello, hello, and welcome to the stream. We're just starting off today. I'm going to build a small rover, I think, to start off. Just give us something to play with. Because a lot of cool stuff we can do with one of these, so let's get started with that. And then we'll go from there and play with some other options and, you know, see what's what. But rover's always a good start, because they're kind of fun to make. So now we want to get a rover up there, and what we immediately do is we want to shift that probe core so that it faces straight forward, because that's going to help us get the most control out of our rover. Then I like to put the Communetron just directly on top, and that'll be strong enough to support it basically anywhere in the solar system. Well, not anywhere in the solar system, but it'll go pretty far that way. And now we'll come over here, throw on a little electrical. You want to try to make your rover as practical as possible, so we're just playing around now with this. Hopefully we'll get some people watching in a little bit. And I put the batteries underneath like that because it's much safer that way. It lowers the center of mass pretty significantly. Which can be important. Alright, now we want to obviously add some science, so I need to add a Kerbal computer system on there. Then we'll add just one of those. Thermometer is useful. The gravity only detector. A mysterious goo. A Plasmat barometer. And that I mean, that really could be enough. We probably want to do two goos, mostly for the sake of balancing the weight, and then we'll come over to utility and we'll throw some lights on this puppy. And I'm using Shift W just to aim the lights forward a little bit. So now let's give this rover a test run and see how we do. RC1, this is my rover 1. So we'll name it that and then we'll launch from there and we'll see how we're going. Let me pause the stream and then we'll come back in a minute and we'll see if that helps with So I like to that's more controllable. I just locked the back wheels. And we're just playing with it to see. Open up that antenna and go from there. But a good rover has to be functional off-road too, so we'll give it a little test. Brilliant. Does it turn well? No. Too bad, and it's pretty hardy. Alright, do it, Yui. There we go, a little parallel parking, and we are off. Woohoo! We're just gonna test it over these hills this way. Because that's really what matters, is does it function off-road? It's kind of fun, you can see the comm mat. We actually are getting a signal from the sat relay to us. Alright, well, let's keep shooting along. Hello, welcome. Thank you for watching. We're just playing around with my rover now for a minute. Let me know, let me think. The plan of this was to kind of have people suggest to me things they want to learn or stuff they struggled with, and then I will do my best to try and present you with lessons on how to do that in the most useful and interesting way. So that's what I'm thinking. Let me know if the sound isn't working or if you need help with that. So if there's any skills you want to work on, just put them in the chat and we'll get started. And we can kind of go from there. This is just my little baby rover I've been playing with while I was waiting for people to come on. I was thinking of dropping it down on another planet maybe, or on Mimas at least, to test it out there. And then we can kind of go over a lot of different stuff in terms of docking and rover deployment and etc. like that. But if you are familiar with that and you'd rather watch something else, just let me know. Hey, look at that. It made it up the hill. Alright. We'll just recover the vessel. So that rover works pretty well. I think we're going to do what I was talking about earlier and try to set it down on Mimas. So if we want to do that, there's a few things we have to do first. First, we need to designate it in a way that we can make it transferable to the other ship, because this building here basically is not going to give us... Oh, let's scroll down. There. This building here is not going to really let us build the rocket the way we want to. So, if we want to turn it into a rocket, we're going to need to... Actually, I'll just load it in the other building. That's a fine solution. Yeah. Alright, that's what we'll do. So we'll just save it in here. We'll leave the building and we'll switch to the VAB, the Vehicle Assembly Building, and we'll load it there. I was going to maybe make it a sub-assembly, but I don't think that makes sense. So, if we want to send that up to Mimas, we're going to have to open it up in the VAB now. So now we have our ship transferred on over to the Vehicle Assembly Building. And I'm just going to lift it up way high. And then I'm going to flip it like that. Great, so we need to get this inside of a rocket. On top of a rocket, along with at least one ComSat that's going to help us communicate with it. So actually, I'm going to go to the new, and we're going to start by building the ComSat that we're going to use to communicate. So we're going to throw a RC001S remote system. We'll put a high gain antenna on there. I think that's what I want to do. I think I'll do 2 of these actually. And then we're going to throw some batteries on, and we'll put the batteries on and the RCS, so that we have the ability to stabilize it. And then it needs a little bit of fuel. It's going to be going to a different orbit than the rest of us, and a little engine. Great. And then we'll throw on some electric. Good, so that will be more than enough to power this little babe and get it off and on its way. So I'm going to stack this on top of the rover, actually. Yeah, I think I will. So we're now open. No, cancel. We're going to save this as a sub-assembly over here. So this is our Mimas ComSat. So we'll come here and do set, and we'll save it there. And then we'll get rid of it, and we'll open up the rover. And we'll load the Mimas ComSat. Basically like that. So we need to put a Septron between them. It has to be a Septron, because if it's not, then they won't separate properly. I'm really glad this is getting so much attention. And then actually I'm going to throw a cubic octagonal strut right there, and we'll plop this like that. That's going to be a better system because then I can strut it up. We'll do 3 or 4 struts coming down. Come on. It's not pretty, but it'll work. Actually, let's fix it just a little bit. Great, that's fine. That'll keep everything tight and together. Now, we need to get the body that's going to lower. Actually, yeah, before we do that, we have to construct the next part, which is going to be the actual launch portion, the landing pod, basically, for our Mimus craft. So we need to put come on. Great, so that will sit there like that, and then we're gonna basically extend. This is what we use as like a sky crane method. We're just gonna extend some I-beams off of this. 3 of them, I think, will do. Or 4. 4 is fine too. Come on. Actually, we can probably do it with 2. Great, and so on the edge of these, we're going to put little twitch engines. Three little twitchies. And we'll just connect these by fuel ducts. And that needs a decoupler. And now, theoretically, 'cause I don't want to put that on there yet. We'll save this as this, and now we'll pull that off, and we'll launch this, and we're just going to test and see how it flies. Did my stream freeze on me? No, we're actually doing okay. Not that anyone's watching. Nonsense. Why? Those arrows are pointing the wrong way. Come on, I thought this would be a big hit. Now we can launch it off and see. That's better. Gotta make sure those are facing the right way. Let's see if we put this up. 720 HD. It's pretty. Hello and welcome. Thank you for coming by and watching. Let me know if there's anything we want to learn. I'm just playing around with a little sky crane while we wait for some people to come by. That didn't work. Let me know if there's anything. You can comment in the section here, or you in the comment section, or you can. Well, that's the best way to do it. I'm just playing around now with a sky crane that I'm going to send up. This will be way easier. Yeah, I'll do it like that. We're going to send it up to Mimis just to practice the landing and stuff, unless, of course, if anyone else has a suggestion or a desire to see something, we can do that instead. That's too big. So, right now I'm just putting on, if you want to do a sky crane, you have to, essentially you're going to extend the engines outside of the rover, so that if I put the rover on under this, which I'm about to do, you'll see that the engines stick out in such a way that it's safe for it. Oh, come on. That it's safe for it to stick out under. We basically want to put the rotor right down there, so we'll have to go to the other building and reassign that as a sub-assembly. Let me know if there's anything you want to learn. Just type it in there. I'm happy to teach basically anything. So give me your requests, what's hard for you, what you're interested in, docking, landing, flying, a space plane, whatever it is. I can teach it if you reach out and ask. For now, I'm mostly just fooling around. You will not let me make this a sub-assembly, right? Did it work? Cool. Great, that's what we needed. So now when you assign it to be a sub-assembly like that, that means that I'm able to pull the entire ship out and basically assign it as one part onto a rocket. So now when I go back to the other room, I'll be able to do that really easily, to the VAB. So now we come over to the VAB, and we'll get started there. So we want to go here. Well, actually, yeah, that's fine. So we want to come here, We're going to put this as a landing ship on Mimas. This is going to be just the landing piece. So I'm going to put, well, I could do 4. We'll try it both ways and see what looks better. And then under here, basically, I need an adapter and then a decoupler. So now I'm going to load the rover. So that's what it is. Actually, let me pop you over there, just so I can quickly put this back where I want it. I'll just slide it forward a bit, and that should give me the freedom to do this. Hello, thanks for watching. I'm just working on a little sky crane now. Come on. We'll test it on Kerbal before we send it off to Mimas, but I don't think we'll have too much trouble with it. So I'm actually going to have to make that structural piece a little bit longer just to avoid banging it. That's really too big. Where's the smaller one? You know what, that'll do just perfect. Great. So now, theoretically, we'll just drop it off, and then the part will be able to fall to the ground and land there. So now we want to put the twitch engines on, so we need 4 of them. And then we're going to basically fuel them like this. Now you have to go to the engine. There we go. So now we have 2,000 delta V actually. Well, no, 1,000 delta V, 2.3 thrust to weight. This thing is going to fly really quite high, high and majestically. And then we have to put a pod up there because otherwise it's not going to last very long once we get it up. So now we can save this as the sky crane, and we'll test it on the launch pad. Now, this is not going to fly perfectly well. The point of the sky crane is we have to be able to do the descent onto whatever body we decide to land it on. And this thing could really go almost anywhere. We could put it on Duna, we could put it on Eve with a parachute. But we're going to practice with Mimas, because Mimas is the best practice ground for any Kerbal Space Program experience. So now we just fix our staging. And if we hit space, we want to switch to control from here. Now we hit space, and we should basically take off pretty much straight up. The vehicle. Let's try one more time. A little too fast there on the up. I have to balance the mass, actually. That's what's going on there. That's why it didn't land right. So we want to get those brakes on. And we just want to see, are we able to hover with it? And if I hit space, we can drop this off and the sky crane will fly away. So the initial design works beautifully, and it should explode, yeah. On impact, just like that. So that part works fine, and now we have to switch to control from here, and turn off our brakes, And we can now take the rover for its inaugural drive. If you flip your rover like this, there's two ways to get it back up. The first is to go and extend the antenna, which sometimes does it, and then we also have the solar panels down here that we can use. But we're just testing that one thing, so that part doesn't matter at this moment. Alright, so the sky crane works fairly well. The one thing we would really love to do is just balance it so the center of mass is directly over the center of thrust, and I'm going to guess. Oh, it is pretty close to perfect. Cool. And because this is going to be for landing purposes, especially for Mimas, which is such a light planet, we could even switch to the Spider engines. But I don't think we need to. I am going to throw on a little RCS fuel, just to make sure that we have as much control of the vehicle as possible. Now, sometimes I actually put an RCS right on the underside of the rover, like this. And if you do that, then what you're able to do is come to the control area and put 4 thruster blocks of RCS directly on the sides. Of the vehicle like this, and that lets us take off and land the vehicle if we need to during flight, which can be really useful. It gives us much more control of the ship. So from here we want to well, we have solar power, we have an engine, we have the ship setup, but we also need to be able to communicate with this, and the way we're going to do that is with our Mimas ComSat that I built earlier. So we basically need to put a detacher between these two, a decoupler, that's the word I want. And I use stack separators because they tend to separate more cleanly in my experience. Alright. So let me fix these stacks, and then we'll go from there. Alright. So now we have a communicator that we can put into orbit and use there, and we also have the rover. So the next step we do is we have to figure out how we're going to get the thing into orbit. And the way we're going to do that is by building the rocket underneath. So we want to make sure everything is as stable as possible. And then we'll go from there. So I'm going to start by putting on a smaller engine that's going to be the interplanetary engine, the one that helps us move from the orbit of Kerbin into the orbit of Mimas. So I needed the coupler because I want to be able to remove this part eventually, because otherwise I won't be able to land my ship. And we're going to put, which I'm going to size out a little bit. The reason I'm making this larger is that I want to be able to start with my, there you are. I need to be able to start with the fairing pretty soon to cover all of this. So if I expand like this, and then I strut up from here, then I'm going to be able to put in a fairing that's going to be able to be useful in terms of hiding everything in a way that makes sense. So now we'll put the whole thing inside a fairing. And we'll close it off. Beautiful. So now we have to put the actual rocket engine in. We're just going to lift it way up in the VAB and fire the rockets on. So we want to put a, well, we don't need an orange tank really, but something close to it. This should probably be enough with a Poodle engine. And I'm checking my Delta V here using the Kerbal Engineering, just to make sure I know where we're sitting. So 2,000 will be more than enough to get us into the Mimas orbit. Actually, we can probably go smaller than that and do just a little baby engine. Like this, yeah. That's already going to be more than enough to get us into Mimas orbit. And into our parked orbit, and then move us lower for when we drop off the rover. So I think that'll be plenty. Now, because this stage is going to be detached, but it's also going to have to be around for a while, I am going to throw on a rechargeable battery bank just to make sure that we stay powered up. Now, from here we can go over to just traditional Rockomax decoupler, and we need to build now the launch stage. And we want about 3,700 delta V in this stage. So we're going to put a mainsail on the bottom. And that's already getting us pretty close to where we need to be. So I'll just throw on a few solid rocket boosters and then we'll be good. So we'll do the hydraulic detachment. That's a lot stronger in terms of it's just a better decoupler, because when you fire off the hydraulic detachers there, it's going to really send the rocket up and away instead of causing us any problems. It's going to send these solid rocket boosters away so that we're not stuck with them flying back to whack us. Now we want to put some tail fins on, and then we want to put nose cones on. So now we should be able to launch this thing, and it should fly pretty smoothly, and we'll be up and off pretty quick. Now we want to make sure actually, I'm going to add a one more probe right here. And I'm also going to put... well, actually, no, that'll be fine. Great. So this is our Mimas launcher. And we're going to save now, and we'll launch off. So right now we've been demonstrating some different building techniques. I assembled the rover in the spaceplane hangar. That's the best place to do that. And then from there we will now launch it in the off the launch pad. So we build it in the spaceplane hangar, we attach it to a rocket in the launch pad, and then we go from there. We want all those rockets firing at once, because that is the way it works best. Now, we're going to hit resume flight, and then I will hit space, and we'll fire. We basically want to tilt at about a 45-degree angle slowly. So we're going to move slowly to the 90-degree mark, because that's the way the planet orbits. I'm just going to raise that up because I want to make sure that we're in as close to an equatorial orbit as possible. Oh, don't fall on me. That's fine. Alright, so now I just lock on prograde, and we basically let the thing fly itself from here. I do want to turn on my Kerr, and then turn on just show the engineer, right? We want both HUDs on so that I can see where we are in orbit. So right now, actually, we just reached orbital altitude, but we want to keep boosting up to probably 100,000. And now that those have died off, I'm just going to let them fall. Beautiful, the solid rocket fuel boosters are off. And now we'll stop, because we're about, we'll go up to 120, just because I missed 100, and I want it to be a clean, even number. Great. So now that we're in an orbital approach, we can deploy the shell in just a second. We don't want to do it yet, but we will in a moment. Now if we look at our comm network, we have 3 satellites that are already in orbit, in a geosynchronous orbit, basically providing us with feedback the whole way to Mimas and back. We're going to make sure that that works perfectly. And now I will deploy the Airstream. And we want to set up our orbital burn. So we're going to go to the apoapsis, which is right here, and we're going to get a synchronous burn by pulling prograde on the maneuveral node until we are in an orbit. So basically we want to wait for the apoapsis to flip the periapsis. And once that happens, once they're side by side, that means we're going to be pretty much in a perfect orbit. That was 200 meters off, not bad when you're measuring in hundreds of thousands of meters. And now we can also extend these antennas, which should give us even more communication abilities and just make sure that we stay in contact with Kerbal as we fly. So we want to launch our burn when the estimated burn is half of our distance to the node. So we want to finish it basically on either side of the node evenly. Now we can just switch to map mode, zoom out, and watch the orbit take place. You can start to see it building towards the outside. And then we'll just do the last part really slow speed so that we don't mess it up too much. There we go. That's pretty much perfect. 120 and 121, so we're close enough that it doesn't matter. Now we need to match planes with Mimas, and the way we do that is we need to select Mimas as our target. Sorry, let me get rid of all that engineering junk. There we go. We'll select Mimas as our target, and now we want to go to the delta node, the descending node, sorry, not the delta node. And we're going to go to add maneuver, and we basically want to shift our orbit so that those flip, and I want to do it this way. Come on. No, I was right first time. And when they flip like that, that means that we are just about right. We want them to have a 0 or -2, basically. You want to be within 0.2 of perfect. When it's perfect, it'll go like that. So now we have our descending and ascending node lines up perfectly. Hello, thanks for joining us. We're just launching a rover and satellite to Mimas right now. It's kind of the plan at the moment, and then we will go from there. Let's see if we have enough fuel left in this to do this stage. Oh yeah, we do. Cool. So this will also finish up our complete orbit, and then we'll go from there. If you have anything else you want to watch, we can always pause this mission and come back to it later, or whatever. So now we're going to track to the maneuveral node. And the ship will slowly rotate. It's quite heavy now, so it's not particularly happy with me, I would say, for making it fly like this, but it will rotate. So we're going to be doing a MIMUS landing in this video. We're also going to be setting up a geocentric satellite over our landing site so that we always have communication. Now that does mean we're going to be like the like the Mars rover. Well, we're going to be in a similar situation. The Mars rover does not have 24/7 communication with Earth, and neither will our rover, but it will have enough communication with MIMUS that we're able to drive it around when we need to. So now that we are facing the node, I'm just going to warp to it. And once again, it's a 12-second burn down here. So that means we want to have a 6-second, T-6 when we launch the node. When we launch the burn. And that's fine. It doesn't have to be rocket science. Well, I mean. And I do the last part at a really slow speed, that way we don't blow it too bad. That's perfect. Great. So now if we go to the map, our antecedent and descending nodes are 0, which means that we are perfectly in line with MIMUS. Now, there's a lot of ways that we can do the math to figure out when to launch to MIMUS, but we don't need them. What we need to do is focus on Kerbal, then Kerbin, then zoom out, and what we want to do is basically see, let me turn off the ComNet, the way you don't see it. We want to basically see, when are we going to be able to see Kerbin, MIMUS in the horizon? And the answer is right about at the antecedent node. So if we zoom in here, we can see that at this point, right about here, MIMUS will appear over the horizon. So I'm going to make my burn to orbit right here at the antecedent node. And if we pull this out, we should get an orbital burn. Yep, an orbit, I mean, of MIMUS. Or an encounter, not an orbit. So there we go. In 7 days' time, we'll have it. So that's absolutely perfect. Now we just want to go here, and we're going to now jettison this lower stage and switch to our MIMUS stage. And we want to activate this and basically give it like 1 second of puff, because that will change our burn time here. So it's going to be about a minute, maybe a minute and a half for that burn. So I'm just going to warp around the planet. I do that by clicking on the actual orbit and just warping. Great. Now we come here. We gotta relocate ourselves towards the node, towards the maneuver node. And I know it says 152, but if I hit full speed, it's gonna drop down to 1 or whatever. So we're gonna give it another 30 seconds before I actually fire this engine off, and I'm gonna bring it in slowly. Because I'm worried about the ship destabilizing, and by doing it like that, it just makes it much less likely that we have any big problems. So let me extend some solar panels here. So that we can get charging. There we are, off and away, and if we come back here, we'll be able to see that we're getting closer and closer. MIMUS is really far out, it's important to remember. It's literally thousands of meters out. So we want to build our launch carefully. And now that we're getting close, we want to cut that engine way down. Great. And that gives us a Mimic counter. Alright, that's just fine. So, now because this is a two-part mission, I want to actually switch my focus now to Mimis. And we need to basically warp to our planar switch. So when we switch to orbit it, that's when we want to make our next move. So now here we are in orbit of Mimis, in a Mimis flyby. We're not in orbit yet, so we're going to go to the Parapsis. And we're going to enter the orbit like this. We are more or less in a perfectly aligned orbit to Mimis, which is what we want. Although, you know what? Ugh, that's frustrating. Well, actually, let's just first do this part, and then we'll do the next. We'll start by getting into the orbit that we were going to get into, and then we'll go from there. So I'm just making it circular so that it's easy to deal with. And then we'll go from there. So now we want to just switch to the maneuver node. If I turn that CommNet on, so we're still communicating directly with Kerbal Space Center. So now we'll warp on out. Hey, thanks for watching. Let me know. We have a new viewer on. Let me know if you have any questions or you want to see anything in particular. I don't have to keep doing this particular mission. We can change it up if people want. So. So we'll just warp to that burn. Oh, I missed it, but that doesn't actually matter that much. We'll just fire off the rocket and we'll get into an orbit either way. So I just want to see now if I'm going the right way. I should have preset that, but I didn't, so. I have a little extra fuel, so I'm not super concerned about flying a perfect mission. Alright, so now, well, the first thing I want to see, I'm orbiting Mimis. This way, and we want to see which way is it. So it's rotating the opposite direction, which is what I was worried about. So before we can do anything else, I have to fix my orbit so that I'm moving the same way as the planet. So the way I'm going to do that is by going in and just flying retrograde. And I'm going to fly to a specific altitude. I want to be in a synchronous orbit, which means I want my altitude to be 357 kilometers. So that would be the equivalent of 357 kilometers. So we're going to want the Parapsis to be at 357. Which will be And this is so I can drop off that prop satellite. And that'll be close enough, and then I'll play with it and get it perfect from there. I have to drop off that communication satellite so that we have a way to communicate with Kerbin once we land the rover. So now we just warp to the moment of truth. And we'll make the burn now. So I said 357. So if you want to do a really fine-tuned burn and you have a big rocket, a big engine on your rocket, a powerful one, you can right-click on it and change the thrust limit. And that will let me just more fine-tune it myself, which is exactly what I want. So I said 357. Sorry, I'm going back to the wiki just to check 94. Alright, that's actually really close. That's only a few hundred meters off. So this here is actually the exact altitude we need for a geodesic orbit over Mimas. And so we just want to warp over here, and then we will bring ourselves into a circular orbit. Great, that's perfect. So now I will warp down here. And we are now going the right way around Mimas, which is what we wanted. In the first place. So now we'll just switch to the maneuver node. And I really overfilled this rocket, but that's okay. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna separate this now. And we're just gonna shift ourselves a little bit out of the way. We can turn those brakes on. And we're just going to shift to prograde and launch ourselves just a little bit out of this orbit. That way we're not flying in the same trajectory as our the other ship. Yeah, that should be enough of a velocity change to give this guy peace of mind. And now I'm going to pop open that solar panel here. And rotate the ship so that it's facing towards it. Just so that it doesn't run out of power on me. Great. Now we have our new friend here. And this is the one that needs to get into that orbit, actually. So we're going to add maneuver. Sorry. There we go. Just line them up so that we circularize again. And the reason I separated this is I want to use this smaller engine for this burn. So we really want it to be as close to perfect as possible. So let's activate that. And what happened? Oh, did you pop off on me? Nope. Well, we still should be pretty successful. This is about a 3-second burn, so we'll boost on out. And give me my orbital stats, please, Kerbal. Okay, now I'm just playing with it. Well, I think we'll take that. We are just barely off of being completely perfect. So now we want to angle so that one of the we blew off a lot of stuff on here. We can send up a repair mission to fix it, and then we'll get to do docking. We do have a ComSat here. So if we go to our map now, we hit show everything, we'll be able to see more than just that. So now we want to switch to the other ship. So I'm going to actually go back to the Space Standard to do that, and we'll switch there. Thanks again for watching. I hope that you are enjoying what you've seen so far. Kerbal Space Program is quite a fabulous game, I think. But there's a lot of really fun stuff we can do in it. So we're going to put down our Mimas lander now, and then we'll go from there with our next steps. But first, there is actually a ship I spin up just as a test that's deep in Kerbal orbit, and I would like to destroy it. So let me blow that up, and now I will go to the Mimas launcher, and we will fly that. So now we have our Mimas launcher here, which actually is going to have enough Delta V to land itself, although that's not what it's supposed to be doing. So we're going to go face retrograde, and we're going to just basically bring ourselves into a much lower orbit around Kerbal. Hello, thanks for joining us. If you are just coming, we are putting a rover down on Mimas using a sky crane setup. That's kind of the plan right now, and that should be really pretty easy and fun and good to do. I do want to keep track of my electricity, but we have quite a bit of it, because that solar panel will pop off if I try to land with it on. So I'm just going to hit Z for a full boost, and we are going to basically bring our orbit way in tight on Mimas. Probably 100,000 meters per second is about what I'm going for. If there is anything in particular you want to watch, let me know, or I'm happy to keep landing rovers. That's quite fun. And if I wanted to do this as efficiently as possible, let me stop and explain that. I would actually always do my burns at the apoapsis and the periapsis, because at those extreme points of your orbit, you have the best influence over it. It gives you the best ability to manipulate it. And because Mimas has a very low gravity well, we can actually bring ourselves in really quite tight. We're actually going to go all the way to 20,000 meters. I think that'll be a good distance. And I still have that engine on really low, don't I? Yep. So now we're going to warp to the Parapsis. And then we'll do the opposite burn and just recircularize that way. And we should now see, yeah. And we've lost signal, I believe. So we might have to do another loop because I messed that up. That's going to clip, but will it do its job too? Yep. So now the single for this one goes from there. Oh, come on, don't do that. It's actually bouncing off that far relay. That's kind of fun. To me, really. Alright, so now we're just going to bring the other side in. It doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah, that's more than good enough. Basically, we want to warp around until we get in line with the actual ship of Mimas. So we want to land basically right where the launcher relay is. So that's going to require, well, a little skill, but it shouldn't be too bad. So we're going to try to land in this area here, actually, on the next go-around. So I'll just warp around once more. We're actually going to do this in a time warp, pretty much, to try and get us... I just want to get on the right side. On the bright side, so that you guys don't have to watch me land in the dark. So I'm actually going to come here. We will reopen up that solar panel. We're just getting the solar panel back on the sun so that everything will fly smooth. There. Beautiful. Now I'm just going to switch over to this relay. And we're just basically going to warp until we get it above the sun. So I should... Alright, so we will just warp around. There we go. Now we're on the sunny side of the planet. And there's our Mimas lander. And now we're going to set that up and touch down on the planet. I just don't want to do a landing for you where you can't see. And that's what likely would have happened there. So we're here. So we're going to do another loop around. And now I've picked my landing spot. So something we want to look at is how do we control where we land. And I want to land in this icy area up here in the middle of it. So if I want to do that, the first thing we have to do is shift our orbital angle so that we're going to fly over it. And then we want to pull ourselves in tight, basically. And try to adjust so that we're going to fly into that ice. So this looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to complete this maneuver node, and then we'll go from there. Now we do have to account for the fact that Mimas rotates pretty quickly. So by the time I get to this node, we're probably going to have to adjust it again. And again. And again. Now, one of the good things about flying on Mimas is that we have a fairly good odds of being pretty safe with our orbit and making sure that everything flies smoothly. The gravity is so low that we're going to have a lot of opportunity to fix any mistakes that I make. Which is why I always recommend people test play on Mimas and not on the Mun, which is a much harsher place to land. So right now we're still on our trajectory. It looks pretty smooth. I'm actually going to pull it down a little bit. And this way, that's what I want. That's going to give us a better angle. Hey, thanks for joining us. We have another viewer. Obviously, feel free to comment in the chats if you have any questions. We're going to be lowering the Sky Crane onto Mimas, and then maybe we'll take a quick break after that, and then we'll do a test land on Duna as well. I'm actually going to... Now we have to tuck some stuff up, because we don't want anything to break as we go in for the landing. So what we want to do now, once we get above the ice, we're not quite there yet, but once we're above the ice that I was planning on landing on, now we are, yeah, we want to kill our horizontal velocity. So that means we want to stop moving sideways over the body of the planet. So to do that, we want to go to surface velocity. We want to target the retrograde marker. We have to kill that surface velocity. And right now, the other thing that's important or useful is that if we pull up this HUD2 up here, that you hopefully will not be cut off from you, I can see our actual altitude. So once we get to retrograde, I'm just going to fire, and we want to get that retrograde marker directly over the top of our map. So I fired a little too hard there, but not terribly. So now we're actually going to blow the lid here, decouple the engine. So we are now just slowly controlling this. So we're going to control from here, and we are going to shift to retrograde, which we should be able to do pretty smoothly. We're also going to need to now activate our Sky Crane engine. And this needs to be retracted. So I'm going to hit space. Do I have to extend that for us to get our communication? It's alright, we'll have to send a rescue crew, I think, then. So I'm now just basically trying to keep the keep us in a straight vertical flight pattern. We can see under us the the first rocket stage is going to blow probably 30 seconds or so. And we just want to keep our surface velocity low. I'm actually going to get rid of that orbital one and pull out the surface engineer. I really love this. It's an amazing thing. It just does such a good job at calculating everything for you. We have another 1,000 meters to go before we hit the ground. I know that because I sent down that first piece to blow up, which can be a very useful strategy. So we want to make sure that we are essentially vertical up and down. And when you don't come with your own communicator, do you? No, you do. Huh. So this single right now is direct to Kerbin, which is perfect. Basically, on Mimus, you have a few tries. You don't have to stress. If you are a quick saver or nervous, this is the time to hit that quick save button, so we don't have to go all the way back to the beginning. So what we're basically going to do is try to touch down on the surface attached to the sky crane like this. We'll close that Communitron. And then we will go from there. We have another 300 feet of altitude or so. One of the really nice things about the salt flats on Mimus is that they're perfectly, sorry, I'm trying to talk and land at the same time. They're perfectly flat, and they're perfectly, basically at 0 altitude, maybe 10 feet or whatever. But it makes it easier to use your altimeter here than landing sometimes where the altitude is very different from what your perceived altitude might be. So we're just going to do our best to keep the retrograde directly over the nav bar. That's the biggest danger. If it's not directly over like this, you're going to crash into the ground. Because you're going to come in at a weird angle, and that's going to mess you up. I really don't like that this is. If I retract it, we lose our communication though, don't we? Yeah, okay. Quickly, you have to extend. It's alright. Flip, flip, flip. We landed there a little too hard because I was playing with that. So I'm going to use the RCS to right us. And that's why I put it there, and now we'll come down smooth this time. You want to land at probably less than 1 meter per second if you can manage it. And we should be touching down, well, in just a second. We're centimeters above the ground. So we're just going to bounce once or twice. So now we want to get rid of the top stage. So I'm going to see if I can take this antenna in one more time. No, it's not going to let me. Okay. Then we can drive away. Come on. We'll activate the antenna. Turn off the brakes. We should be able to just dump it off. Yep, there we go, beautiful. So now we have our rover on the ground at Mimus. And because we have RCS on it, we can actually fly it around and maneuver it like that. We want to get our solar panel up. And then let's take some observations so we can transmit them back. So if we transmit this data, it goes up to the Communitron and straight up to the Kerbal Space Center. But if, for instance, we warp to we're on the other side of the planet, I believe... Why don't we use this guy here? See? We have to look at that. I think we have to send up a repair get trip to try and fix that. So I'm gonna quickly check the wiki and make sure I didn't do something stupid with the antenna. I don't think I did. No, so that should be working. Now, I have to blow that ship up as well, so let me come in and blow that away. Yeah, that's the problem. Okay. We have to get rid of that at the Space Center, and then we'll be able to figure out what's going on. And hopefully we'll track through the person I want us to. We're going on almost 2 hours. No one gives. There we go, now it's going the way I wanted it to. Perfect. So now we are tracking from the rover to the Mimas probe to Kerbal. And that means that we'll be able to drive the rover around, play with it, do all that stuff without any problem. Excellent. That's just what I wanted. I don't even need to send a repair group, but... well, let's suppose I did want to send a repair group. We have our lights on the rover. Our probe is directly above us because it's in a geosynchronous orbit. It won't change. Let's say I did want to send a repair group or do something like that. We can maybe play with that in a few minutes when we do a little bit more. So right now we're bouncing the signal through the relay network, which is just what I wanted to have happen. It's working pretty cool. So that's a little bit about the rover deployment. I think we're going to take a quick break now, and maybe I'll come back in a little bit and do some more. Thanks for watching. I hope you've been enjoying it.